you ready? It's the Roundtable with me, Robert Bannon.
Well, welcome to the Roundtable, everybody. My name is Robert Bannon. You're listening to us on Broadway World or over here on the Broadway Podcast Network, and I'm so excited to be able to spend our time at Tribeca this month. Tribeca Film Festival is New York's biggest film festival, and the Roundtable's excited to always be there. And the second I heard and got a press release about this next film and documentary, I knew that it was something that I needed to know more about, especially with Pride, especially with our own journey, especially what we talk about here on this show. This documentary is perfect for the Roundtable and the people who love it. I'm very excited to please welcome Daniel Junge and Wellington Love to talk about I Was Born This Way that debuted the other day at Tribeca. Congratulations to you both. Kudos, thousands of films, and your film is there.
Thank you. No, we're happy to be here to talk about the film. We're super excited, and Tribeca is a wonderful place to premiere this film.
And you had an amazing premiere the other day. You have an amazing crew of people, producers, famous people, people fanning out some of the biggest stars, talking and raving about this film. So tell me, Daniel, what was your job with this film in particular?
So I'm co-director on the film with Sam Pollard, venerable longtime director. He was a bit of a mentor of mine, and both of us have had plenty of films at Tribeca.
And that means Daniel's been out in these streets making some movies for a minute. Making some movies for a minute.
I'm old. That's what it means.
No, it does not. It means you're a successful filmmaker. That's what I say. And Wellington, what about you? What was your role with this production?
Well, I'm actually older than Dan, and I'm the lead producer on the film, and I got involved about 4 years. Well, actually, 4 years ago this month, in fact. One of the EPs on the project, is an old colleague, an old friend, sent me what was at the time the hero interview of Archbishop Carl Bean, which was intended to be part of a short film. And I watched it right away. And as you probably saw, Carl is this incredibly magnetic, charismatic, figure who's irresistible. And the second I finished watching, the reel, I called Josh and I said, what do you guys need? How can I help? And that was 4 years ago. And here we are now.
It's amazing, everyone, and I would love to know about the backstory about how this came to be, and how you were able to put this together. When I say, folks, by the way, when you're talking about people that are like, when I was joking about celebrity dumb, not only is this executive produced by Questlove and Billy Porter and Jamie Lee Curtis, but like you're talking about interviews with Lady Gaga, Billy Porter, Dionne Warwick, Questlove, like the biggest stars are here to talk about this gentleman. Why, Daniel, is this documentary and story about Carl being important for today? What made you say this is the film I need to co-direct?
Well, so let me tell you about the genesis of the project, and I would love Wellington and I both have thoughts on why it's important. But let me tell you just a bit about how it originated, and it originated with me. I was researching a series on protest music, and wanted to talk, of course, about sex. And when I think about the epitomal gay anthem for my generation is Lady Gaga's "Born This Way." I knew a bit about that song. And in the researching of that song, I found Archbishop Carl Bean's story. The fact that her song was an homage, not just to this original earlier song, but it was an homage to him, to this man who had sang the song and then dropped out of Motown to start to become an AIDS activist. And he actually started the first Black gay church. And I thought, wow, that is an incredible story. And it just stuck with me, and had some downtime between projects, and ended up researching this more and realizing that he was in Los Angeles, where I was at the time. And so I reached out to him, and we shot literally like just a week or two before the heart of COVID hit. And so it's just very fortunate that we were able to get that 2-day interview with him, before the brunt of COVID, and that formed the nucleus of the film. And that's the piece that I reached out to Wellington, and in regards to all these great stars who are both exec producing and in the film, this film took 6 years to make, and we just kept banging on it and just kept asking, and one piece begat another, and that begat some money, and that money begat some more money, and so it just was piece by piece by piece. And adding Wellington to the project, he helped add some of those pieces as well.
Yeah, and just to speak to the celebrity aspect of the film, yes, I mean we were lucky to get, all those people you mentioned, Questlove, Billy Porter, Jamie Lee Curtis, both in terms of, being EPs and also featured in the film. And I think one of the amazing things about not only having their support, it shows really the sort of reach of Carl
Yeah.
Bean's his work, his legacy, his, how he, has, inspired on some level all of those people. And I think when you see in the film, how deferential they all are. I mean, look, I mean, Lady Gaga, you can't get a bigger superstar. And you see what this man's work, both in terms of his activism, his spirituality, and obviously his music, what that meant to someone like her. And it was humbling for us, to have them, come to the film so open, so ready to give. And you just see that, yes, Carl was boots on the ground, during the height of the AIDS crisis. He was providing a spiritual home for people who were, taught that they were unworthy of God's love. And and yes, he reached, all these other amazing people like a Billy Porter who still very much embraces his faith, as a Black queer person. So, you know, we think that, adding, yes, the celebrity thing definitely sort of lifts the project up, but I also think it just really speaks to the power of what Carl did. And to go a little into the why now, um, you know, we are living in this time of the erasure of Black people, queer people, women. We're expelling people. And we need to know about somebody like Carl, who was this humanitarian who advocated that love is for everyone. He was a social justice warrior. And we cannot, every time they try to take something away, we have to bring it back. And that's why we have to both document and celebrate somebody like a Carl Bean for all his contributions. He's an American hero, and people need to know about that.
Well, as someone married to a black gay man, and talking about Detroit, Motown, I'm in Detroit right now. Motown's like 3 blocks that way. With churches and the history behind church and religion and
Yeah.
and homosexuality and AIDS and humanity in general. I mean, if there wasn't, gay people in church, there'd be no music. There'd be nothing there. There's still
That's
filled with gay people who are not allowed to live their true life. It's a
that's what
very
Carl said. Carl said if you think there's no gay people in your Black church, you should listen to the choir.
A
You
100%,
gotta
and some
listen
of
to
your
the choir.
favorite gospel stars. So Daniel, it's one thing to make a documentary, it's one thing to have an idea, but it's another thing to build the trust of the subject that
Yeah.
they feel comfortable to talk to you. So what is it that you provided, or what do you think your relationship was that allowed you both for you to take Carl and get him to trust to do the documentary with you?
I don't know. I'd like to believe it's my panache and charisma, but I think Carl was ready to tell his story. And I think he recognized that I was a vehicle to tell that story. I was very upfront with him. Yeah, clearly I'm not from your community. I'm a straight white cis man. Um, but I have a tradition of working in communities outside my own with respect and with collaborators like Wellington, like Sam, and trying to tell as authentically as possible. I think he recognized that, but I also think he was just, he was nearing the end of his life, and I think he was ready to tell the story, and he saw me as a microphone to amplify his story.
Wow. I mean, and what a story, and what a story it
Oh,
was.
yeah, no, it reads. It's like a melodrama. The things that he's gone through, which was a fight, like a struggle for us on the film, because there are so many pieces to his story, and the question is how to fit those together. And do you show, how much do you show? And I think you have to show what he's gone through to understand what he achieved. And he had remarkably difficult upbringing.
And talking about Baltimore and then his growing up and the way that he lived, he founded the Minority AIDS Project in Los Angeles, which is still something that exists. Wellington, is that portion of it a hard part of the movie to talk about? I mean, you talk about the erasure of gay people in general, the AIDS crisis. A whole generation of people were wiped off of this planet. What was it like as the producer and you too, Daniel, as the co-director, to tell that and weave that story?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it was yeah, it's a good question. I came to New York in 1989 at the height of the AIDS crisis. I was very involved in ACT UP, you know, m- making street art, short films, and had considered myself, a fairly well-educated, guy about town who knew stuff, but I didn't know much about Carl at all, and I didn't know about MAP. And there he was doing this sort of parallel work, essentially. And my friends, many of whom came to the premiere, are also the same generation. They didn't know about Carl, so for me, it was actually inspiring to learn that history. To know that we had this man who was doing God's work. He was helping people with their health care. He was, educating people about HIV transmission. Again, he was right on the front line. So it's a necessary story. And I'm just so grateful and honored to be a part of telling and showing this history to so many people who unfortunately don't know about it. So yeah, that's yeah.
I'm
And Wellington,
embarrassed to.
sorry, Wellington, would you also tell Robert about the collaboration with Broadway Cares?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. So one of our early supporters was
And
for
late supporters, middle supporters.
and middle supporter and supporters. It would just supportive throughout the process. Was Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, Tom Viola. And I was introduced to Tom by an old friend, and Tom couldn't sign up fast enough. I mean, he really, he got the story immediately. I don't even know what we had to show him at that early stage, but he really, he believed in us 4 years ago and has, stuck with the project. They'll be very involved, and he came to the premiere, and so we're just so, again, it spoke to how this film can gather a community, and I think that was also something that at the premiere, which one of my oldest friends commented on. He says, yes, the film is wonderful, but what you've done is like you've brought the community together again, and so there were all these people there from different parts of, whether it be the film world, the activist world, the AIDS world, LGBTQ. I mean, and so I think the film will be this sort of this magnet for gathering people, which I think also Carl would appreciate because that's what he was about.
Opening a church and accepting all people, especially people of color, especially queer people of color. What makes me like boohoo cry, no, and thinking about the story is that how many people have been turned away from churches and families and communities because they didn't feel like they had a place to be and exist and didn't know that their place like this existed or that they are not everywhere, is so emotional to me because I have so many friends and people that I know who have felt unworthy and unloved their whole life. And to have somebody open up a place for them is as godly and as much as close to God as I think you could possibly be. Daniel, you talk about being a white straight. How dare you, Daniel, be white and straight? You talk about being were you moved? This because the story is
Oh,
not about being gay, it's not about being black, it's about being a human.
well, I'd like to believe I'm a humanist, and I'm drawn, if historically, to stories that emote for me and emote for audiences. And this just it spoke his story. I could tell was going to be an incredibly emotional story even before I met the man. In terms of like the religious aspect of this, there's it is an intersectional film in that it's about Black rights and LGBTQ rights and the overlap of those and the frictions of those. But then when you bring in religion, religion, which, so there's certainly, I don't know, Wellington, if you want to talk about some of your, emotions around religion, but, religion has been a vehicle for uh, civil rights in the African American community, but it's also been a tool to crush people's rights, especially queer people's rights. And so I think Carl represents the overlap of those three, and that religion can be used as a vehicle for empowerment, which is ultimately what it should be.
Yeah, and I also think one of the amazing things about what Carl was and what he did is that he never apologized for either being gay or being gay and Christian. He never saw any conflict in that. He wanted to make sure that people understood that those things, that there was a way for that to coexist. Think about the work that he did in terms of providing that sort of bridge to grieving families, specifically grieving Black families who were losing kids that they may have actually sort of, thrown out of their homes. I mean, my personal, it is interesting because one of the things that I've thought a lot about in this process of making this film is that, I was 15 years old when the first reports of GRID, gay-related immune deficiency, were like hitting the airwaves. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get this disease because I'm gay. Like I knew, very early, much like Carl, that I was, a gay kid. Um, and I thought, well, one, how much easier life might have been, or how different life might have been if I had known about somebody like a Carl Bean, 1981, 1982. And then, I've had a sort of complicated relationship with faith and the church. I spent time, in church as a kid and had some great experiences, both in terms of camp and making great friends. But at a certain point, I broke with it, and I wonder if I'm at peace with that decision now. But sometimes I wonder, if I had known about a unity, would that have what that might have looked like? Who knows? But so all that to say is that I think what one of the things, I hope that the film might do, in addition to educating people who were involved in areas that were similar to Carl, but it also might sort of highlight for, a kid who's, I don't know, troubled by the idea of being gay and Christian, and sort of see that those things, don't have to be separate.
They can exist together. They can. It's really touching to me. It's what made me so drawn to this film. It's what makes me want you to support it, and makes what makes me want it to be super successful and get to the audience is that need to be. I give you the most kudos to both of you for making this and putting your art and artistry and money and resources behind it. Daniel, how can we support the film? What can we do to help spread the word? And is there a way we could see it yet?
Well, so I'm looking out the window they're putting up, this is Washington, D.C., they're putting up barricades for the military parade for our president's birthday. And we're showing the film here on the eve of that. We're on a festival circuit, and hopefully first these festival screenings, look out for those. Hopefully they're the antidote to this kind of thing. And then we're going to build some kind of theatrical release, some kind of distribution. So just keep your eyes out for it. We have a website, iwasbornthiswayfilm.com. It's where you can see where upcoming screenings are coming, either festival or when we do have our formal release. But we just hope that it's an antidote to these times we're living in.
The links are going to be below. You can check out the website. You can follow everybody on social media. Also, kudos to everybody the producers and the directing team for the amazing animation and the work that you did in this film. It is clever and brilliant. The music, the people, and to both of you, in this Pride, I think there's nothing better than to tell the stories of the people who've marched before us and talk about religion and God and divinity. We lost him. You lost him in 2001. You getting the time with him allowed his voice and his story to be told, and that's the work of you two. You got to get this story out here, inspire the next generation.
Yeah. Well, thank you for helping us carry the message, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
I love this. Daniel, you're brilliant. Wellington, you're brilliant. When you need to do my life story, I'll call you both. I'm ready. Tell Billy Porter and Lady Gaga they have to speak. I don't know them, but they're going to speak at mine too.
Okay.
And I love this. Everybody follow this. Everybody, kudos to them. If you're looking for a great film, if there's a couple screenings at Tribeca, just go see a movie that you don't know, see something that you may not know about. You're going to learn something amazing and amazing filmmakers. And I love that Daniel has done it a lot. Been in a lot of. Man, you make me feel lazy, Daniel. I gotta get myself writing or doing something. Be inspired today. Thank you both so much for being here, and thank you. Continue doing the amazing work.
Thanks.
Thanks, Robert.